heard it said, kill someone with kindness. And it may sound cliche, but there's a lot of truth to that. That's what the gospel really is preaching today. This is 2 of Jesus' 6 antitheses. His 6 antitheses where he says, you've heard it said, but I say to you. And we had a few of them last week, and so now we continue this week. And one of his antitheses, he includes saying, turn the other cheek. And this has been a cliche as well, that has been overused, if not misinterpreted to a certain extent. So remember, when we listen to Scripture or when we're reading Scripture, it takes effect at 3 time periods. First, it takes effect when it actually happened. So Jesus actually said this, so this is, around the year 30 AD. And then it takes effect when it was finally written down. So in Matthew's Gospel, it would have been written down probably between 80 and 90 AD. And then finally it takes effect when we read it now, 2014. So there's 3 different levels here. So I want to go back to the original level, because everybody would have understood this as Jesus proclaimed it. He says, if they strike you on your one cheek, turn and offer your other as well. So in the ancient world, symbolism was very important. You could tell by the gestures someone made or their posture what they intended. And so if you think about it, the Israelites are slaves, whether it's the Persians or Egyptians, the Babylonians, they're always slaves to someone. This happens to be the Romans. So now Jerusalem is occupied territory. The Israelites are in a slave-like caste, if you will. And so the Romans would often exact punishment on them or abuse. So if you are in the ancient world and you strike someone who is less than you are, you symbolize this by backhanding them. If you are going to strike someone who is your equal, let's say they're going to enter into a duel, so to speak, and they're the same rank, then they would strike with the palm. So they would strike, and this is very important, very significant. Because what Jesus is saying to these Israelites who are slaves, if someone strikes you, so in other words, if they backhand you, you turn and offer them your other cheek. So now at this point they have a choice to make, because they do everything with the hand of power, the right hand. That superior can then strike them with the palm on the other cheek, which now identifies them as an equal. Or the superior can walk away, under which circumstances he would lose all honor. And in an honor-shame society, this was very important. So what Jesus is not saying is roll over and let them abuse you. What he's saying is put them in checkmate, and then you have them. If someone strikes you and you turn off your other cheek, they have to choose to be your equal or they choose to walk away. That's what he's saying. Kill them with kindness. That's how we can be superior. He goes on to say, if they are asking a mile of you, you give them 2 miles. And this reflects a lot on a philosopher, psychologist from the middle of the last century, Viktor Frankl. He has this great book, Man's Search for Meaning. And I want to take really 2 excerpts from this book. The first one has to do with this extra mile, because Frankl talked about Auschwitz. He was in Auschwitz, the death camp. And he would say that most people did not die from gas in that camp. They died from starvation, or they died from exhaustion, or they died from despair, because they were not free. They were slaves every day of their life there. And he said, but what he came to find out within himself is there were certain things he could do in freedom. And so if a trooper asked him, or commanded him really, move those 20 sandbags from point A to point B, he said, I would move 21. Because that last sandbag was mine. That last sandbag I did as a free man. He went the extra mile. Whatever they asked him to do, he did a little bit more. And what are they going to do? Say he's doing too much? They would never do that. It's checkmate. And so regardless of how they would treat him, he would always be positive, and he would always respond very optimistically. If you can think of something that drives someone nuts, that would do it. And yet it was very hard, he admits, it's very hard for the soldiers to treat him bad many times. because of the kindness, not only that he saw in response to them, but they saw in his response to his fellow prisoners. So to kill them with kindness is not only possible, but it's advantageous. Now, to those of you who are children, if you remember the fourth commandment, and it says, literally, honor your father and mother so that it might go well for you. That's what it says, literally. And I know when I was a kid, if I fought tooth and nail with my dad over something, I would eventually lose. Because I was in occupied territory back then. I was down on the lower caste. And I could have the best logic in the world. And I could have every reason why he should give me my way, and it didn't matter. He was in charge. It's why he goes on to say here in the gospel, pray for your persecutors. Pray for those who are over you. Now, what I found out during high school is, if I let my dad go off on me a little bit, and then I would just walk away quietly, I wouldn't talk back, I wouldn't fight him on certain things, then I'd wait about 30 minutes. And there'd be a knock at my door, or he'd find some way to find me, and he would usually apologize for yelling. And then he would say, okay, go on to the movies. Do you need some money to go to the movie? He would relent in this. Now, boys and girls, I'm not telling you to take advantage of your parents. I'm not telling you that. But I'm saying if you honor them, it will go well for you. They will be more likely to entrust certain things to you and to trust you. And they want to be good to you. The same thing is true if we have people maybe who have wronged us, or they're not friendly toward us, whether it's a neighbor, a fellow employee, or whomever. If we kill them with kindness, if we react in kindness, they must react differently to us. They must. It's kind of like forcing their hand. Because anyone who would witness this would see the love and care that we're taking to try and make things good, and it would look bad for them. Honor shame society once again. There is a problem in schools everywhere, and there's problems everywhere like this. There's this bullying. 'Twas ever thus. And we could put in all the programs we possibly can to eliminate it, and it will never be eliminated. It won't. If it's eliminated in kindergarten, then it'll happen in grade school. If it's eliminated in grade school, it happens in middle school and high school, and you know as well as I do, in the workplace there are many bullies too. I mean, it goes around. So if we cannot eliminate this, perhaps what we need to do is use our resources to teach those who are bullied how to deal with it. Now, make no mistake, I'm not saying allow yourself to be abused. That's not what Jesus was saying either. I'm not saying that at all. One of the ways to deal with it is to go someone who's higher up to get help for that. But if it's a case where we can react with kindness, if it's a case where it's kind of like an annoyance, or it's just bothersome, or it just creates a hostile workplace, that if we really dig deep down and look for a way to react with kindness and positivity, that even in those cases where the person does not change, at least we gain allies. We gain people who understand our plight and might be able to help us do that. So the way we react is very important, especially when someone has wronged us. Another story that Frankl has in his book, Man's Search for Meaning. So the first 119 pages are his story. The last 70 or so pages are his theories that came from his story. And so he's a psychologist, and he's in a room with a woman and her son. And the son is paralyzed. Now the son at one time was, normally could walk and everything else. Something happened, now he's paralyzed, he wouldn't speak. And so after so long of living with her, and she lived with her son who was very successful, did very well, she decided, my son has no quality of life. And so she decided to take his life and then take her own. Well, obviously this failed, because at this point now they're speaking with Frankl. And during their conversation of why she did it and what she thought about it, finally her son speaks. And he says, I never wanted to die. So here she was looking on her son, seeing what kind of life is this that he's living, trying really to take sympathy on him and help him to end his life. And he says, I never wanted to die. Now at that point, the son could have said a number of things. He could have been hateful toward his mother. He could have said, how did you do such a thing? Or I can't believe you would do this. He said, I never wanted to die. And I imagine that had much more profound effect on her and her conversion than anything else that he might have said. And so, truly, if we can kill someone with kindness, again, it doesn't mean we have to take abuse. No one should take abuse. But if it's these annoyances, if we have someone who has wronged us, and we're really holding on to that we have the ability to let it go and to try to treat them as Christ would want us to treat those. Now, we think, love your enemies. Some of our enemies we can't even put a face on. We just know it's people that are against us. Some of our enemies are enemies because they belong to a certain party or affiliation, or because they have a certain set of beliefs. That we have to get beyond demonizing people because they do not agree with us. We have to go beyond demonizing people because they don't belong to what we belong to. You see, if we can follow the gospel and we can kill them with kindness, it's often the killing with kindness that will lead to their ultimate conversion.